Right, well, Nasser and Athers are away over the other side of the ground. They can join in the conversation now. Nasser, I'm going to come to you first. You were here for the England-Australia game when England completely wiped the floor with Australia. Did you expect to be standing now talking about Australia winning the World T20?
No, probably not. The way Butler just chased those runs down, they look a bit demoralised when they walked off the field. But I think they rejigged their strategy. They got Marsh straight back in. Marsh was playing before that game and then inexplicably got left out. So for one game against England, they changed their strategy and went 5 bowlers. And they immediately went back to plan A, got Marsh in. And I think because of the net run rate situation and they had to win every game, I think Langer or Finch said, come on lads, let's just go out and express ourselves and go for it. And that's what they've done. And when you have Warner, Marsh, Stoinis, Wade, Maxwell, they've got the ability, that's for certain. So it was a change in plan and a change in mindset.
They've done this, Australia to New Zealand, before. They sort of bullied them a bit tonight. Would you agree with that assessment?
In the second half of the game, yes. I mean, it was a pretty good effort from New Zealand to get to that 172 from where they were at 10 overs, and a brilliant innings from Kane Williamson. You know, a man who's really struggled in this tournament, has had horrendous elbow problems, and really stood up there when his team needed him. But in the second half of the game, Warner and Mitch Marsh kind of bullied the bowling, didn't they? Mitch Marsh is built like a bison, they call him Bison, and the moment he came in against Adam Milne, of course he's grown up playing on those hard Western Australian pitches, and he pulled him away. The points Nasser made about the run rate and the change in strategy after the England game coincided with a return to form for David Warner. If you recall, before that England game, there was lots of question marks about his form. He'd struggled in the warm-up games, not had that much of an opportunity on the back of a poor IPL. So his return to form, the change of mindset, change of strategy, and the confidence against New Zealand, because New Zealand's results against Australia are relatively far poorer than against some of the other countries. So I don't know whether it's like we used to be against Australia when you go through a run of bad form over a number of years. Whether that's just there, I'm not sure, but certainly it was a very confident performance in the second half of the game from Australia.
Good point that Michael makes there. I mean, Warner was left out of the IPL, all sorts of shenanigans going on. When you see that sort of form like he showed, well, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but like this evening, you think, how on earth did that happen?
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those things. Everyone kind of writ him off, like you said, in the IPL and things like that, but he's a quality player, and I guess, like I said, one player can win you games, and tonight it was actually Marsh and Warner, the way they came out. That's why I think the England team, they do really well. It's like each game there's a different player who stands up, and that's what makes obviously quality teams, because the way those two came out was pretty cool.
It looked like they wanted to kill the game early, finish the game early in that power play. As it was, they were only 10 runs ahead or something where New Zealand were on the comparison. But again, it was the intent. They were putting pressure back on the bowlers.
Yeah, and it was 2 batsmen doing it, wasn't it? If you look at that New Zealand innings, there's plenty of moments where you can watch a game of cricket and you can think, where did they get it wrong, or where did it not quite go to plan? I mean, Williamson, as Ath said, played an unbelievable knock. They're 57 off the first 10, New Zealand, and Guptill had just one of those nights. He's a striker of a cricket ball. He couldn't get going, and I'm also watching when Mitchell got out in the power play. Hazelwood is banging it on a length. There was a pitch map just time and time again on a length, and you think, go on, then run down, do something, throw him off it. But they never did that, and I would be going in there now thinking, do you know what? Yeah, we didn't bowl particularly well, but we could have got more. We could have actually got 190 on there. That was on, had they just had a little bit more intent, which is absolutely what Australia had.
Why do you think they didn't have that intent to start with? Because we all knew they had to. We kept saying they've got to go that little bit more because of the stats of chasing.
I think sometimes as a batsman, as an opener, and it might feel a bit stoppy at times or something, you know, I'm just going to get through this. I'm just going to try, and that's what Guptill did, and then I'll catch up. And, you know, I might be going at a runner ball. He was like 28 off 35 balls, which is unheard of, really, for him. And then the first time he went, he actually got out. Now, that's the problem. When you play in that way and you think, I'm going to back myself to catch up, if you don't, you've caused a real problem. I mean, you take Williamson's knock out of that, they don't get near 150. It's
go back to Nasser actually here, because you and Michael have been here from the beginning and you've seen all the pitches and how they play. Just Nasser, explain how important you think the contribution of Adam Zampa has been for Australia.
I was going to say just that as your boys there were going on. I think he's that sort of quiet performer that he's so consistent. The only game he really went and more than run a ball was against England. He doesn't do particularly well against England, but against everyone else, he has been quite magnificent. He did a little press conference before this game and said, listen, I'm a country boy in Australia, and when I was growing up, everyone used to talk about the city boys. Everyone always undervalues me. It's all about the superstars. I just go about my business and do my job. And his business is to bowl in those middle overs, go for as few runs as possible, nip in with a couple of wickets. He has been so consistent throughout, having that one spinner as well. They don't have two, they have a bit of Maxwell, so there's a bit of pressure on him, and every single game apart from the England game he has delivered. It helps when you have runs on the board when he's bowled like that, but he's been outstanding because these pitches haven't turned much. Everyone before the tournament said UAE, big spinning pitches. I don't think we've seen a pitch that's really spun square, so Adam Zampa has been outstanding in this tournament. He's one of the players of the tournament.
The other bowler, Sam, I'm going to come here, just got to keep an eye on the presentation because the dignitaries are just gathering, and there are quite a few dignitaries here in Dubai that are gathering, and we'll be marshalling them in due course. Hazelwood, fantastic today. Read the conditions. Yeah,
well, like I said, those three Australian quicks play all three formats for them, and he's shown it throughout the whole tournament. Like Rob was saying, he was just hammering length consistently, and like he does with the red ball, he gets a bit of in, bit of away. He's a world-class bowler, and I think he ended up with 3 for 16 or something, or 4 overs in a T20 game, where if you're going below 20 and 3 wickets, you've had a pretty good day.
Michael, I'll come back to you because it looks like we've got a bit more time. I mean, you must have sympathy for New Zealand after what happens at Lords, etc., and the fact they couldn't get across the line against their old enemy here.
I didn't quite pick up the question, Wardy, but I think it was about New Zealand against Australia and not quite getting over the line. I mean, Melbourne 2015, they certainly didn't against Australia, were almost put in their place there, and then didn't get over the line against England 2019. But you have to say, across formats, another World Cup final on the back of those two, the inaugural World Test champions. You have to hand it to this New Zealand team that they bring their A game to every tournament. And they are an outstanding team across formats, and arguably the best team across formats. There's one bunch of cricketers that won't be enjoying this watching on, and that's England's Ashes players, because they've had to wait until Australia have completed their tournament, and they've got to take a charter flight with the Aussies on Monday down under. That could be an interesting plane journey.
We touched on that at the top of the show. That won't be much fun, that, will it?
Yeah, I was actually texting a few boys during the game, and they're all naturally wanting a good game of cricket, but I think deep down when they're going on the same flight, like Ather said, I think it'll be a rowdy or a very quiet one. I don't really know what it's going to be, but I wouldn't want to be on it.
Nas, with the overall way that this competition has gone, have you seen any new trends develop in the game moving forward?
Is that to me? Yeah. Apart from the obvious trend, which is win the toss and have a bowl. It's as simple as that. I think it's something that we absolutely need to discuss looking ahead in T20 tournaments, because this is about any kind of tournament. There has to be a degree of what will happen in the game. And the moment the toss goes up in this part of the world, the moment you lose that toss, 70% you're up against it. And that has been the trend throughout. And however well you play and whatever score you get, you always feel the opposition can chase it down. So that is something that needs looking at, because your average viewer, your average fan wants a bit of mystery about the game, and it can't be quite so toss dependent. There have been other trends because of the pitches. A lot of the bowlers have gone back of a length. They've moved away from Yorkers, and even when Shaheen Shah Afridi tried to go Yorkers the other day, Wade just goes down on one knee and scoops him for 6. The sides have gone away from bowling Yorkers, but that might be the pitches, because the pitches have been a bit too paced. But the biggest trend has been, in this part of the world, you just win the toss, you have a bowl, and you say, we can chase down anything you get. And 10 times out of 10, that's exactly what's happened.